Well, the leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association has apologized to Nigerians for neglecting its role in the country. Speaking at a national dialogue on the state of the nation, NBA President Yakubu Maikyau said some challenges Nigerians face are as a result of lawyers failing to provide direction for the people. And Mr. Yakubu Maikyau joins us now in the studio.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being part of Newsnight.
I hope I got the Maikyau. I started that over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your conference.
Thank you.
But of course, issues are developing from your conference. For instance, let's start with the apology to Nigerians and the direction or lack of it that lawyers have caused. What exactly would you say are the factors responsible for that? Why are lawyers misleading or misdirecting Nigerians?
Well, I probably didn't use those exact expressions.
Okay.
What I said in my apology to Nigerians was with respect to what I consider an abdication of responsibility by the members of the legal profession. And I said this motivated by a statement that Sir Christopher Alexander Sapara Williams, who happened to be the first Nigerian to be called to the English bar. And he made a statement for me that underscored the primary responsibility of every lawyer. And he said that the legal practitioner lives, and please mind that word, lives, lives for the direction of his people and for the advancement of the cause of his country. That is the primary call of every lawyer. And the question is, have we lived up to that primary responsibility? And I discovered from my own assessment of what we have done as lawyers that there has been an abdication of that responsibility. And I say this, we stand in a privileged position as lawyers. Nigeria is a country of laws, it's a creation of laws. The Constitution created this country. Every other structure in this country is a creation of law. And we operate it by law. And we are the ones that have been schooled and trained and educated in the subject of law. And so we understand what the laws are. And all the things that everyone is expecting to get from this country is a function of law. The justice that we expect to dispense to people is also a function of law. When you go to court, for instance, and there are disputes between parties, and you try to resolve those disputes, what you are trying to do is to dispense justice to the people. All of these things will be done within the ambit of the law. The lawyers understand it. They are the ones that are trained to dispense justice to the people. And where you do not find justice, you will see chaos, you will see anarchy. The insecurity that we experience today in this country is a function of the absence of justice. The lack of economic growth that we see is also the absence of justice. And if the legal profession is the only profession that is called to dispense justice, and that is why we are called ministers in the temple of justice. Yes, and so where justice is not present, these are the things that you experience. And for the existence of every country is intricately connected with the presence or otherwise of justice, and it is our responsibility to dispense justice. And I cannot say, with all due respect, that we have lived to that statement that Sapara Williams made, to say that legal practitioners live for the direction of his people and the advancement.
So like I said, what are the factors? What do you think is responsible? I mean, you've been looking at this holistically, and you've come to that conclusion that you have abdicated duty. Why? What is responsible?
It is a function of not understanding who we are. If you are ignorant about your identity, crisis is inevitable. So what are we doing? We are trying to say that, look, we've come to the understanding that we've not been operating according to what we should do. We've not been discharging our functions the way we should do. And that has to do with the lack of understanding of our identity, which is something that I made very clear at the opening statement in my manifesto. I said I discovered that there is an identity crisis amongst the legal professionals. And what have we then done? We began to mind things that do not agree or are not in line with our primary responsibility. We became vendors. We render services for fees. That is not what we are called to do.
Not for humanity. So would you agree then with the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, when he said the judiciary, judges, lawyers are the bane of this country in, developing this country, not dispensing justice the way it's supposed to be done to advance human lives, as Sapara Williams said?
I don't think you are quoting El-Rufai correctly.
I am.
He didn't say so. The clip that I watched, his interview in Channels, that wasn't what he said.
What was
he
he
simply
saying
said
about the judiciary?
that the courts seem to side more with crooks other than government, and that we made a mistake to have created the National Industrial Court. I don't know what other interview you are making reference to, but if that is the interview they are making reference to, he didn't use these expressions. And El-Rufai is somebody that I like as a person, but this time around he has crossed the line. That statement was irresponsible. It was reckless. It's an attempt to undermine the judiciary. El-Rufai himself has had criminal cases against him. At least I know of one before the FCT High Court. He was ended, that matter was, he was discharged and acquitted on the basis of a no-case submission. That decision went in his favor. Going by what he said, should we then say that the court in that particular case sided with him because he's a crook? No. The court would always dispense justice in accordance with what is presented before it. And if El-Rufai, for some reason, decides to disobey the rules, the public service rules or the civil service rules, to disengage or dismiss employees under the service of the Kaduna state government, and matters are taken to court, irrespective of the nature of the allegations in that matter or the basis upon which he felt those people should be relieved of their jobs. He has the responsibility and the duty to comply strictly with the provisions of the law. And I heard him say that the National Industrial Court would order for the reinstatement or nullify the dismissal of an officer that was alleged to have embezzled funds when he was given a verbal notice. Which law permits the giving of verbal notice? And you are talking about a serious issue of an allegation that somebody has embezzled public funds, and you want to relieve him of his job that has statutory flavor because that employment is governed by law, and the law says that should you want to query that person for any allegation at all, that allegation or that query shall be in writing. When he was minister in the FCT, he did something similar, where he caused several directors to be relieved of their jobs, and without following procedure. I was privileged to be the one that handled that matter on behalf of many of those directors. And at the end of the day, the court actually found that the process that El-Rufai deployed in relieving them of their job was contrary to the law that regulated their own employment. And the court set it aside and ordered the reinstatement of those people. So I don't think he learned his lessons, and it is absolutely wrong for anybody to try to undermine the integrity of the court. The Nigerian Bar Association will not take that kindly. Actually, I already have drafted a letter which I would send to Mr. El-Rufai calling on him to withdraw that statement. And if he fails to do it, I appreciate the fact that he's under the cover of Section 308 right now. He enjoys immunity. But I guarantee El-Rufai that by the 30th of May 2023, when he must have left office, 30th of May 2023 is a Tuesday. If he fails to withdraw that statement and apologize to the judiciary, that statement, like I said, is contemptuous of the court. Is one that is capable of inciting the public against the institution of the judiciary. If he fails to do that, I would have a process ready to take him to court. He's a public officer. He's a creation of the Constitution.
Okay.
I mean, many of us are not happy with what the governors have done. Okay. Should we then say that it's unfortunate that the Constitution created the office of a governor? Likewise, the National Industrial Court.
Great.
It's a creation of the
Mr.
Constitution.
Maikyau, that's very categorical. You're hearing the first time on Arise News. You even know the day of the week. That is to be a Tuesday. We'll be following up with that. But I want to go back to the abdication of duty you talked about. We're counting down to the elections. 22, 23 days to go.
Okay.
Election monitoring groups have highlighted frivolous cases at different courts as a risk indicator to election manipulation. And that brings me to the disciplinary function of the NBA. You know, when you talk about abdication of duty and, of course, frivolous cases by lawyers, which we are now seeing as a threat to our democracy, our election, what is the NBA doing to discipline erring lawyers? We don't hear much about that. Don't you think that in itself is a problem?
Well, let me take it from the question you asked about some persons describing what has been filed as frivolous. It's not within the remit of anyone other than the court to describe a process that has been filed before it as frivolous. And it is only when the court, having considered the matter that is filed before it, determines that the matter is frivolous and finds that whoever finds that matter misconducted himself in the process, then that person is subject to disciplinary action by the Nigerian Bar Association, or let me say, by the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. Now, I must make the point here that the Nigerian Bar Association has been limited in recent time in its responsibility towards dealing with cases of discipline against its members. And this is arising from a new rule. It's a 2020 rule of the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, whereby the Nigerian Bar Association itself has now been reduced to simply a complainant, like any other person who is aggrieved by the conduct of any member of the legal profession. I mean, when I say legal profession, member of the bar, because if you're talking about the entire legal profession, it comprises both members of the bench who serve, and the National Judicial Council deals with disciplinary action with respect to those who serve as judges and justices. But for members of the bar, we are limited. And so what we've been asking for is that there should be a review of that rule, whereby the Nigerian Bar Association, like it used to be, will participate in the disciplinary process of any erring member of the Nigerian Bar Association. We would participate in the determination of whether there is a prima facie case in the complaint lodged against such member. We will look at it, and then we also take part in the prosecution of such an alleged erring member of the profession before the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee. And I will say this to you. For our administration, even as it is, limited as it is, we are not closing our eyes to any act of professional misconduct. Every unethical conduct of the member of the profession that has come to our attention, irrespective of who you are, irrespective of your age at the bar, irrespective of your status in the profession, the rules are one, and they must be applied to every member of the profession equally. If you are big, you are tall, you are short, as long as you are a member of that profession and you misconduct yourself, we would come after you.
All right.
How do we do that? We'll file a complaint against you before the LPDC.
Okay, Mr. President, we don't have enough time, actually, but very quickly, some Nigerians have expressed worries, about the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court now, taking more interest in resolving political matters to civil matters and the rest. Are you not worried about that? Is justice accelerated in situations like this? And secondly, we know that the Supreme Court is overwhelmed let's say the justices are understaffed, if I can use that word. So the loads, the work is gargantuan, where dates are even given, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and the rest. Some of the litigants may even have died. Some rot away in prisons. What are you doing, to help their justices, accelerate the process of justice?
So, and I thank you for acknowledging the fact that the Supreme Court is overburdened. The Supreme Court of Nigeria is the most overworked apex court in the world. The Supreme Court ought to have a full complement of 21 justices. They do not have that full complement. There are just about 13 of them right now on the bench of the Supreme Court. With respect to political cases, pre-election matters, and there are about 1,000 of them, I am made to understand, that have now come before the Supreme Court for determination. These are matters that are by the Constitution time-bound. So, for the matter that goes to the trial court, the High Court, or the Federal High Court as it is now, by reason of the Electoral Act 2022, all pre-election matters go to the Federal High Court. They must be determined within 180 days from the date of filing. If it goes to the Court of Appeal, it's 60 days from the date of the filing of the Notice of Appeal, and similarly to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has to pay attention to those matters because they are time-bound. What should we do? We should go back to the Constitution. It's either we limit the number of cases that get to the Supreme Court on appeal, or we also put timelines for such other matters, because it is not deliberate. The Supreme Court does not by itself paying attention to these matters over and above civil matters.
I'm sure we're going to provide another platform for the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, because it's got so much to say.
I will be glad to come back, and maybe before I leave, I think I should congratulate you on your 10th year anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been doing so well. You've been helping to spread the news everywhere. Let us get us informed about what is happening in our environment. You've done so well. Kudos to all of you. Thank you for all the sacrifices that you make. We do not take it for granted. And on behalf of the Nigerian Bar Association, I also offer our congratulations.